Welcome to the Kubus podcast. In each episode, we will be meeting the individuals who can give us real insight into the problems, solutions, and people in our technology industry.
Hi and welcome to the next podcast in our series. I'm Katy, one of the vendor managers here at Kubus, and I'm actually joined by Jamie Pitchforth from Juniper. Welcome, Jamie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
I know you're a very busy man, so it's quite hard to pin you down, but could you just take a moment just to kind of explain what you're doing at Juniper, how long you've been there, and just a bit about yourself?
Yeah, no problem. So, Jamie Pitchforth, been at Juniper for 3.5, nearly 4 years now. I started out working in verticals for corporate, which is really to look at how we can start to move away from selling products and technologies and start to look at far more specific vertical messages around the translation of technology and what that actually means to a number of the verticals. So we did that. I did that for nearly 2 years, and then I was asked to come and lead what we call UK strategic business for Juniper here, and that is to specifically run the sales teams for the core verticals that where our technology is really able to make a difference, where we're winning, where we're most relevant. And that is what I do. I've been doing that for nearly a year, and I have a team of 8 people split across a number of different verticals.
So your team, obviously, as you say, it's a strategic focus. Why is that such an important thing for Juniper at the moment? Because I've been with Juniper, selling Juniper for a while, but it feels like it's such an important thing at the moment.
No, it's hugely important. The innovation and the investments that Juniper's made over the last, really since 2019, has placed us in a really strong position in the market where we can start to accelerate growth. So over the next 3 to 5 years, we want to see that growth up to really double the size of the business. So move from that 5 billion revenue up to the 10 billion of revenue. And yes, major accounts and some of these large opportunities will help us on our way, but that mid-tier and those strategic verticals are really where the majority of the numbers are going to come from. So we're accelerating hard, and we're really focusing on driving pipeline and awareness. And I think that's our biggest Achilles heel, is that where we have the door opens and we articulate our wares and our story, we get traction, and that's proving very successful across all our key markets.
So what are the key verticals that your team are particularly looking at the moment?
So key verticals for us, higher education, certainly number one, and I think that's the number one probably outside of service provider in the traditional business, but in the enterprise space, higher education, retail, we're having big success across retail around the world, FSI, so we're doing very well in the banking fraternity, gaming and media, healthcare, although healthcare and our public sector team sits in a different place and another leader. But those are really the key markets where we're doubling down. And when I say doubling down, we're growing the team. So for higher education, as an example, I now have somebody running the north, I have somebody running the south. We're actually investing quite heavily, and we have a new team member joining next month to run further education, which is a market we've never really focused on before. But I think there's a lot of reasons, a lot of good reasons why that will be a strong market for us, and why we're going to invest into it. And the same with retail. We have 2 people now in retail, and I think as we get traction and we start to win more and more, we'll start to put more and more resources into those areas, as we grow the numbers that we're doing.
Would you say then that the higher education piece is probably the strongest in all the verticals that you're looking at?
I think right now higher education is a long way advanced. We've been focused on it for probably a little bit longer than some of the other markets. We've had more resources focused on it because traditionally it's been a strong area for Juniper. So I think our messaging in that market is probably a little bit stronger as well.
Do you think that's to do with the technology, how it sits within higher education and the benefits that they can get from that?
Yeah, definitely. When I talked a moment ago about the translation of technology and what that means, we've got a really strong messaging suite that's not just opening the door for us into IT, but into some of the IT stakeholders that would be beneficiaries from a large network infrastructure upgrade, transformation, etc. So student services, estates and facilities, would all be really, really strong beneficiaries from a large transformation project. So having that strength, being able to demonstrate outcome and value at a strategic level, changes the goalposts, whereas we quite often, when we're meeting with CIOs and senior executives within a university, they'll tell us that our competition are still talking about products and technology, and they're not having the strategic level of conversation that they do with ourselves. And I think as we started to get a bit of traction with the likes of Oxford University, which is a huge brand, the number one brand, that meant people started to listen. And then when you overlay that with where we are with the likes of Gartner right now, so number one in wired and wireless, we're very prominent in that top right Magic Quadrant for location services as well, which is now when people are looking at smart campus, intelligent campus, location services, understanding footfall, being able to engage with people based on who they are, where they are, because they've all got the university app. These things are now becoming part of a networking project, part of a requirement that the network has to enable digitalization and engagement with students and that greater student experience.
So with, obviously following on from that, with Juniper Trends and the products that you're seeing within the wins, against other solutions out there, what would you say is the best Juniper do?
Absolutely. So I think where we've been really strong, so traditionally data center and service providers has been that stronghold, and we do have a number of universities using our technology, QFX, within the data center. But since the acquisition of MIST Systems back in 2019 and the evolution of that technology, the innovation that we've achieved with that technology, what we call the AIDE, so that's our artificial intelligence driven enterprise, is really the sweet spot and where we're getting most traction, where we're using that as our Trojan horse, but we're winning some pretty hefty projects as a result of it. And that's really down to technologies such as artificial intelligence and what artificial intelligence, machine learning, data science can actually do to optimize and make a network more efficient, reduce that cost of ownership. But when you overlay all of that into a cloud-based platform, that we get that business continuity. And I think business continuity and always on, always available in the world of higher education is really, really important now. This idea of 9 to 5 or 7 in the morning till 7 at night is gone away now with all these international students and just the culture of the generation of students.
That's come about since COVID and the change and how the world now is.
I think it was well on that journey before COVID, just because of the world, since 2007 and Apple bringing out that first iPhone, and all of a sudden we don't need to be tethered to the network anymore. Wireless is, the direction we're going. But I do think that COVID has now accelerated that, in not just in higher education, but in all different vertical markets. That realization that you don't have to be on the campus, you don't have to be in the office. You can, deliver those services to anyone, any place, any time, on any device. And as long as you can do that securely, that gives so much more flexibility to you, and everybody in the workplace, and that's what we demand. That's what now I think the reality is that's what we expect.
From your opinion, obviously you've worked with other vendors before and other solutions. You've been in the industry a while. What makes you most excited about Juniper and what they're having at the moment? Apstra, MIST, switching, what part of that product?
I think, they're all exciting because we're investing heavily and innovating, doing some really, really clever things in all of those areas. And I think what excites me is that having worked with some of the other vendors for many, many years, 30 I've been doing this, way back to Cabletron in 92, it's that leadership, that thought leadership is that we're now not selling the products and technologies. We're actually really making a difference. We can help people, the universities with their retention. We can drive student success. We can use data analytics to understand health and well-being and student engagement. We can then use that intelligence to understand withdrawn behaviour and then deliver things like proactive remedies so that pastoral care can actually engage proactively before it's too late, before that student is really in trouble. So it's the excitement, I think, of bringing new things and new ways and new services, new solutions to not just higher education, but to all of these markets. When you look in retail at brand loyalty, experience is everything. And when we go into Sainsbury's or Tesco's or in any shop, being able to have that interactive engagement, that kind of Amazon experience, but in real time in the physical world is really, really exciting. And I think the art of the possible, and I present quite a lot on the art of the possible, things that you can do or could do. And I think that's the exciting thing about this, is the way that our customers are now reacting to us when we articulate our story, has been a game changer.
Definitely. I think as well, in the last few years, the acquisitions that Juniper have made, Mist, obviously, especially, I know that your team have adopted that really well and sell it into the verticals in a great way. You've got Apstra as well, which is a massive part of the portfolio now.
Absolutely. And right now within Juniper, there's a massive drive to grow our data center and grow the Apstra engagements. We brought in specialist resources to overlay the sales and overlay the pre-sales in Jason Hammond to be able to really drive and articulate the benefits. And I think a lot of this it's awareness, is that when we open that door and have that Apstra conversation it's not about Apstra, it's about what Apstra can do for you, why it's a good thing, how it will make you more efficient, reduce cost of operations, simplify operations, etc. When people start to understand that, once that door is open, then we get traction and we win. We're winning. The engagement, win rates are absolutely huge. Just one example of that is just going back to AIDE. Globally, I think we have a 96% win rate where we do a POC with our Mist technology. And it's exciting that when that customer says, right, we want to do this, we'd like to have a look at this, where we can then take it. So
I do agree on the POC and demos for Mist. We've seen that.
You've seen that, absolutely.
Adopts straight away.
Yeah.
I think another of the products that I'm seeing is a big push at the moment is SSR. And that seems to be a big thing from Juniper as well. And Apstra at the same time, they're really pushing those two. Yeah,
no, we are. I think there are certain markets. So higher education is one of my favoured markets, is not really a market for SSR. That whole SD-WAN space is not something that plays in that vertical market, but certainly in other areas such as retail, it's a very interesting proposition. We're definitely starting to get traction. Relatively new technology for our sellers, so they're still, learning, and probably some of them a little bit nervous. But again, we've got the specialist resources that sit behind it. And salespeople, at the end of the day, human nature, is to typically take the easy option. And the Trojan horse with Mist, I think, recently has been the easy option.
Yeah.
But we need to dig deep and move a lot more towards the Apstra and having a much more rounded conversation with our customers, because everybody's got a network, everybody's got a wide area network, and everybody's got a data center of some description, their own services that they're supporting. So we're relevant in all those areas, and I think it's just about educating our teams and our partners to make sure that they're enabled and able to have those conversations. And then I think we'll start to see a lot more growth in those areas. But we are strong and we are growing in those areas for definite.
I can see that, and I think it's great as well that Juniper puts so much behind it with specialists, like you said earlier. There's specific people that are just for those products that will help your team to make sure that they understand what they're selling into these verticals, and partners like myself. And
they're absolutely, and they're accessible to you guys as well, which is a really key thing. We've got a lot of very strong resources, both vertically and horizontally within the business. So a lot of the time it's about awareness. Do you guys know that, are you utilizing the resources that are actually available to you? Because as you say, there are some great people, and some of these technologies, they are a little bit complicated. They are relatively new, and the way that we deliver them is different to how a lot of the end users and the partner community would be used to delivering them. So it's really key for us to get that awareness out there.
So obviously the verticals that you touched on earlier that you look after within your team, is there anything outside of that you think Juniper should be looking at? And for instance, I'm thinking of things like manufacturing. Is that something that you want to have within your team? Is it something that Juniper do look after, but it's not a massive focus?
We don't explicitly focus on manufacturing on it as its own entity, i.e. as a vertical. But our retail is kind of retail logistics and manufacturing. So each of my members of the team will have, so I've got 3 in retail. 2 of them have 50 accounts, 1 of them has 100 accounts. So 200 retail accounts. That will include an element of logistics, manufacturing and various other areas as well.
So is there anything outside of that you think Juniper should be looking into a little bit more?
I think professional services is an interesting one. looking at, the legal fraternity, the KPMGs of this world, consultancies. I think that's quite a big area, and I think those guys are particularly moving now into the world of wireless in a big way. That, they don't need to be in the office 5 days a week. They can work from home 2 or 3 days a week. So ensuring that the experience that your staff get when they're at home is the same as what they get when they're in the office is really, really important.
Yeah.
And also from an audit point of view, in the legal fraternity of how much time did we allocate to a particular piece of work, then being able to use analytics and data from the network, again, is really, really important. So I think that's an area where we're starting to see a little bit of growth. We within major accounts, we do have a few legal end user customers, but I definitely think that could be in the top 2 for a new vertical market at some stage.
So it's for your team then, you're looking to expand it people-wise?
Yeah, I think we will. As I say, as the revenues grow up, the targets get bigger. There's only so much that one individual or 2 individuals can handle. That I think that's what we do is we'll bolster. So, we've got 3 now in retail. We could potentially add a 3rd into the higher education space. And then some of the other areas like banking and finance, that's a very large market. So as we have a new gentleman who's joining us again in a number of weeks for that market, very experienced. So I'm excited that I think once we hit the ground and we start running with that and we get to the end of the year and we see what the pipeline looks like, what the numbers look like, maybe that's something where we'll be looking to bolster and potentially split north and south, because it makes far more sense, as we're now encouraging our teams to get out and visit people.
Yeah.
Get back to reality.
So how important is it for your team or any team within Juniper to work with partners like ourselves to make sure that you're speaking to customers in the right way, selling them the right solutions and doing what needs to be done?
Number one, it's absolutely the primary thing that we need to be doing for many, many reasons. One of them is we have a finite team of individuals and we need to be able to extend our sales teams by using your sales teams to be that extension. Otherwise, we won't scale our business, we won't be able to grow because there's only a finite amount of stuff that we can do. But also being able to deliver these solutions, some of them are now complex. So having the right skills, the capabilities to be able to, certifications to be able to take a solution, from how we've articulated it and turn that into a delivered solution, actually delivering value. We absolutely rely on our key partners to be able to do that. But from a business development perspective, it's absolutely paramount right now that we're collaborating with you, that we pick a vertical market, we pick a target set of accounts, and we collaborate and we collectively go out and do that. Because if we do that together and you're the beneficiary of the opportunities that we find in those instances, we get loyalty. And I think loyalty is really a key thing now, is the commitment and loyalty that you are, a dedicated Juniper partner in this marketplace. We're working together, we're a kind of one holistic team, even though 2 different organizations. That's the direction we have to take. The partner, the channel side of things for us has never been so important as it is right now.
You were talking earlier about some of your wins and the bigger things that you're finding within verticals. Have you got any kind of cases that you can tell us about without saying too much detail as you want?
I'll say what I can say. But a very large bank, international bank, we were engaged with. They wanted to put what we call a full stack, so wired, wireless, WAN, etc., into all of their branches around the UK and in fact around the world. One of the things that's different for the banking community now than pre-COVID is that their staff are only in the office 2 to 3 days a week. So the question is, do they need the estate that they've got? Is there a consolidation that could be done? Because the cost of estate in some of these big cities is huge. So there's potentially some very big savings. So when we were engaged with them and we were, head to head with our normal competitors, and one of them obviously being already incumbent, we got talking about some of the outcomes and the real business strategy, and one of them was consolidation. And they'd actually got a $5 million project that was funded to look at occupancy and footfall. So that was the door for us to talk about our innovation with virtual Bluetooth and the capabilities of being able to count and manage footfall using the access points and the location services that we have within the MIST platform. And when there was that realization from the bank that they could stop that project, save that money, and deliver everything they need from the network, it was a game changer, an absolute game changer. And we were awarded the project, and they've spent many, many millions of pounds with us. So, I mean, that's one example. But in the world of higher education, the University of Reading, and if you go onto the Juniper website, you'll see Stuart Brown, the CIO of Reading, talking about their wireless first strategy. They never really had a wireless first strategy until it wasn't part of the criteria to procure and choose Juniper. It was only when Juniper was installed and they saw the benefits, they started to realize the benefits of it, that they started to adopt and move much more towards a wireless first strategy. But in the worlds of higher education, in the world of healthcare, one of the things we're seeing a huge amount of growth in is IoT. And the number of IoT devices that are now needing to join the network. And that's something, a capability within our solution that we do very, very well. We do very, very simply. Other people can do it, but it's actually quite complex to do it. And you need to have that, what we call the home from home experience, so that when I'm at home and one of my kids wants to connect a new PlayStation to the wireless network, it's very easy. They have an SSID and they have a password, and they connect that device, and then they get another device and they use the same password, same SSID, and they're off and running. So that home from home experience, being able to take that solution into the workplace, so that if you're a student in a university and you want to onboard your iPad, your laptop, your phone, your printer, and maybe other IoT devices, your gaming station, that you can do that without having to go to IT. And a really good example for me of that, it kind of brought home last September, where I actually brought my daughter, who was going to a university in the East Midlands, and I won't say which one.
One that you've got MIST in, or?
No, they don't have MIST. They don't have MIST at all. But we bought her a printer, and to get her printer onboarded onto the network took about 2 months, and I was nearly crying through the process. And it was just a really good example of how, when students all turn up with 3 or 4 devices, and you get 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 students in a sort of September, October period, the headache and the trouble and the overhead to a university to onboard all those devices is an absolute nightmare. So, huge differentiator by being able to put that onboarding capability into the hands of the student, hands of the teacher, professor, etc., etc. So these are some of the use cases where it's not about connectivity, it's beyond the network, it's about other additional values that we can now deliver.
Well, thanks very much for joining us today and sharing your insights into Juniper and the strategic part of the business. I really appreciate your insights.
Well, no, my absolute pleasure. Enjoyed, thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us and listening in, and please tune into our next podcast, which will be out shortly.
Thank you for joining us at the Kubus podcast. We hope you enjoyed the chat. Remember, there are more conversations in the series. Just search for Kubus wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe.